Hi everyone, I'm Mark Walmsley. I'm the Chief Connector at the Arts and Culture, actually Connector in Chief, I prefer, at the Arts and Culture Network. My superpower seems to be connecting people, and my passion is music, arts, and culture. So I'm in the best possible place. And that's especially the case today because I'm joined by Philip Horn, one of our full members. We're entirely member funded as a community. And we're going to have some fun. I'm going to create Philip's fantasy cultural year from the answers to some easy questions to which there are no wrong answers. And I have a time machine and a magic wand at hand for this fantasy cultural year. Philip, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
And thank you also for being one of our full members. It's very much appreciated. We don't have any advertisers, sponsors, grant making bodies, or shareholders telling us what to do as a community, and that's the way we'd like to keep it. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
We're going to have some fun in a moment, but before we do that, I wonder if you'd be kind enough to tell everybody a little bit about you, where you are, and the work you do.
Well, I'm in a little town called New Cumberland, Pennsylvania, across the mighty Susquehanna River from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is the capital of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So for 25 years, I served as the executive director of the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts, the state arts agency for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And like every other state, we have a state arts agency. Prior to that, I worked at the California Arts Council, mostly working directly with artists, teaching artists and touring artists, performers, and so on. I mean, I've started in this business like so many of our colleagues and friends, studying acting and theater through high school and college and through graduate school, and finishing in at Michigan State University. Having grown up in Los Angeles, I was
Mm.
not prepared for the Midwest. And after 5 years in Michigan, I did everything I could to get back to the warm weather, which is how I started at the California Arts Council.
Sounds great. And we've had some conversations recently which have been fascinating. Thank you very much for sending through that presentation that you shared
Yeah.
about concerns we both share, I think, in the manner in which arts organizations are marketing and communicating their events and their offerings. So give us a little bit of a sound bite, if you will, about that sort of the difference between traditional and a rather more appropriate approach to marketing arts.
Well, all of us have struggled for years trying to figure out how to market the arts. And it finally occurred to me you can't market the arts because the arts are so different. What is it that you say you're offering? And how are you going to deliver on what you offer? And it piqued my interest to start looking at advertising from companies that had massive amounts of money for research and marketing and how they marketed their products. And almost without exception, the exception being insurance companies, and I won't get into that, what they did was show people enjoying the product or the service. And that'll be very familiar to you, a shot of people enjoying a Coke or laundry detergent or anything like that. But that's not what we have done traditionally. We've shown images of the performances, the performers, the artwork. What we don't show is people enjoying themselves. And we don't demonstrate that all people are welcome by showing people who look like us or look like others. And it intrigues me. And it led us to starting an initiative with Americans for the Arts to train arts organizations in Pennsylvania in marketing through the National Arts Marketing Project. Um, Sadly, COVID hit, and that program did not continue after I left my post.
Mm.
But I think it is. I think it is. It's an important consideration that we look at ourselves and wonder. The famous quote attributed either to Saul Hurok, or to Yogi Berra, which if people don't want to come, you can't stop them. Uh, and so, what are the messages we're sending, telling people, this is not for you? And I think we send those messages
Mm,
unconsciously, um, but they're there.
yeah,
And
I think
it,
it's great that you've highlighted that, and I know we're going to have further conversations about that, and perhaps arrange a talk at one of our events so that people can benefit from your experience in that respect. The other thing that I touched on, I think when we last spoke, is the concept of the super peer, the opinioned elite, the people who in their circle influence the behavior of their peers.
yes,
For example, I did an exit poll at one of the concerts of the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra in the UK, and I found that only 24% of the people in the audience made the decision to come. Um, the there were groups, there were people who were leading groups, there were people in there with their spouses, and you've only got to go to a restaurant and try and count the number of people who are dining alone, and it's nearly always zero, right? Which means at least half the people in that restaurant did not make the decision to go to that restaurant. So we had to put a program together with the orchestra, and they were able to start identifying these super peers, and treating them with something a bit special. So there was one lady who was routinely bringing 8 or 9 people to every concert, and she got a bunch of flowers and a personal visit from the chief conductor. So there are things that we can learn, that, as you have pointed out, from other industries who seem to be doing it better. The real thing. Just do it. Those kinds of messages appeal to those who want those experiences, and they want their choices validated through enjoyment and experiencing that. So I think that's great. We haven't got time to go into the detail, but I know we will do, you and I.
look
um,
forward to it.
Excellent. But you have inspired me for the reason for your cultural year that we're going to create, your fantasy cultural year. I'm going to create a global research trip for you. Okay.
Love it.
It's extremely well paid. It's first class all the way. Friends and family can come and visit you when you want. Okay. A TV crew will follow you. There is a book deal when you get back. There is a TED talk, and there is a global university lecture tour to be done off the back of this. And
I'm already exhausted.
yes, and better off, and your bank manager is much happier. Um, so in order to start this off, I need to place you somewhere in the world. So I'm going to do that by asking you, what's your favorite building?
Oh, my favorite building is Falling Water in Western Pennsylvania, the iconic Frank Lloyd Wright home built for a department store magnate in Philadelphia. I mean, in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
It
beautiful
is,
place. I think when we last spoke, you said you'd been able to have an event there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Fantastic. Most people will know it.
yeah.
But it's Falling Water, Frank Lloyd Wright, if you want to Google it. So I'd like you to imagine that you're sitting at a pavement cafe, a pop-up cafe within sight of Falling Water, perhaps
Mm.
outside the visitor center.
That would be a diner in Pennsylvania, but
That'll be
okay.
okay, diner. And it's 6 p.m. on a June evening. It's lovely and warm. And you've just come from a meeting with the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, if there is one. I assume there
There
is.
is.
Yeah. It's a fictitious meeting, I'm afraid, but they have got wind of the work that you're doing that helps those in the arts communicate more effectively to their prospective audience members. Okay. And they think the bar needs to be lifted around the world.
Mm.
And in order to do that, they need a league table. They want to know where the hot spots and the cool spots are for effective communication that leads to engagement in the arts. And
Mm.
they think you're the person to find out. Okay.
Mm.
So they're going to hire you for a year. And they're going to uh, send you around the world to do some study to work out where lessons can be learned and where those lessons might need to be applied. Does that sound like fun? It's very well paid. All of the above is included. Does that sound like fun?
Oh, yes.
There we go. All you need to do to get started is to decide in what city you'd like to start. You can go to any city in any country in the world. Where would you like to start that?
Hmm. That's a really good question. Um, hmm. Where would that be? Where would that be? Um, that's a tough one. Um, I'd probably maybe St. Louis.
Okay, St. Louis, Missouri.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Now you're on the plane. You turned left on the plane because you're traveling first class, of course.
Yes,
The,
of course.
the steward brings you a drink.
Good.
What are you having?
Oh, wow. Probably a vodka martini.
Nice. Shaken, not stirred.
Well, I don't care how you do it.
He notices there's a book on the table in front of you and on the plane.
Mm.
What book would that be?
What book would that be? Um, well, certainly one of the most influential and amazing books I've ever read is a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. I don't
Okay.
remember offhand the name of the author, but he's a Nobel Prize winning behavioral economist.
Okay.
Kahneman is his name. And it is like, for me, it was like reading a detective novel because it is all about how people make decisions and
Oh, that sounds
the
fascinating.
thousands of decisions we make every day, which are not contemplated, but which are subconscious, and that we are driven not by data, including people whose lives are concerned with data, not by data, but by feelings.
Mm,
This is
that,
something that I pondered with the theater faculty at Michigan State when they brought me back for a retreat. And I said, you ought to be the most important department on campus because you're about feelings. And feelings is what makes people decide what they're going to do,
mm,
not data.
wonderful. That's a great choice. So that's Daniel Kahneman.
Kahneman. Yeah.
Yeah. Thinking Fast and Slow. That's going on my reading list. Somebody's produced a lovely infographic on Google that sort of brings it all to life. So that's worth having a
Good.
look at.
Good.
Excellent. Now, so we're on the way. We get to they have one more challenge for you, this
Mm,
family, the foundation. It's a musical challenge. They would like you to restrict your musical listening to one very specific genre of music for 12 months,
mm.
to the
Well, the one
exclusion
piece
of all else.
that pops into my, well, it might be early jazz, but I've also been a great fan of John Adams and particularly a piece called Shaker Loops,
Mm,
um, contemporary uh, so-called classical music.
yeah, lovely choices. Excellent. So we get to St. Louis, and in Missouri, and you're met by a group of students who take you under their wing. They show you to a beautiful loft apartment overlooking the city, and they say, relax, unpack, unwind. We're going to come and take you out to a dance performance and then
Mhm.
out to dinner. Okay. Now, this is where the magic wand and the time machine come in. I have both and they're working fine. Okay, so we can go back in time and I can put things on the stage in front of you in any combination. So if I, so for the dance performance, you can have any dancers, living or not, any group, any style, and it doesn't have to be American culture.
Mhm.
What would you like to watch?
Wow. Oh boy. I had the opportunity to see Sinatra suites once. Oh gosh, what's the choreographer's name? Anyway, it was written for Baryshnikov, choreography. And it was, obviously, as the name suggests, it dances to a series of songs performed by Frank Sinatra. And it was extraordinary. And I've been very fortunate that when I was at the California Arts Council, I was in charge of a bunch of federal funds from the NEA to support dance touring.
Mm,
So I had to do a deep dive into dance.
mm.
And what a great experience that was. Susan Marshall was another great choreographer I admired. Gosh,
thi- I think Sinatra's suite was Twyla Tharp.
Twyla Tharp. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
astounding.
I'm going to have
Just,
to watch some of those
I
videos.
just so admire what humans are capable of doing,
Mm,
physically, emotionally. They're athletes of the heart. It's just extraordinary. I mean,
love that phrase, athletes of the heart. That's a great phrase.
just amazing. Uh,
Wonderful.
and it
Okay.
doesn't require language.
No, no, it's similar to music and visual art. Well, that's
Yes,
one of the strengths of our community
yes,
in the arts, is that we don't depend on language to the same extent as others do. And not only do we accept difference, we thrive on it and embrace it.
yes.
Lots of other sectors could learn from that. So, okay, great. That was a great. I'm sitting there with you. I love that. That's great. Now, the what is the preferred national cuisine for dinner? You can choose
I
anything.
could choose anything. Well, it would probably be Mexican.
Nice.
I grew up in Los Angeles and
Yeah,
lived in Sacramento for 11 years. And
that's a lovely choice.
yeah.
Excellent. Now we're going to buzz again to a new city. We don't have to stay in the States. You can go anywhere in the world.
Mhm.
Where would you like to go next?
Well, I'd love to visit rural Japan.
Okay, we'll fly to Kyoto um, and and meander around rural Japan as well. Now, before we start meandering into the countryside in Japan, and we're in Kyoto, it's sport day in Japan. Okay, we've got breakdancing in the Olympics, we've got synchronized swimming, we've got dressage, we've got ice dancing. There are some sports that are clearly performance art.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't have to be one of those, but what sport would you like to watch for a couple of hours? It can be
Oh,
anything you like.
that's easy. Baseball.
Baseball. I'm afraid I'm one of those Brits
Yeah.
who doesn't understand the rules of
That is so, and I feel that way about cricket.
yeah,
And I feel that if people can grow up appreciating and understanding baseball, then they can understand anything in the arts because baseball is just bizarre.
I'm going to
It
have
is,
to
it is so strange. It isn't about getting the ball into a goal. It's about getting the ball as far away from you as possible.
I love that.
It's just so strange. Like, and then, in this country we call football soccer. And
Yeah.
this game we call football has almost nothing to do with the foot.
Yes, yes, exactly. I love it. And cricket is an alien concept to many countries as well. But there's a lovely quote by Groucho Marx. He went to a cricket match when he was in London, and somebody went up to him a couple of hours after he arrived, after the game had started, and said, "How are you enjoying it?" He said, "It's great. When does it start?"
He is one of my heroes.
Oh
One of
yeah,
my
either this man
heroes.
is dead or my watch has stopped.
Yeah. If I were any closer, I'd be behind you. And outside of a dog, a book is man's best friend.
Yeah.
Inside of a dog, it's too dark to read.
And I wouldn't want to be a member of a club that would have me as in it. Yeah, as
Yeah,
well.
you know, that's what I
Yeah.
think it was the Beverly Hills Country Club that invited him to be the first Jew to
Mm,
become a member. And
mm,
that was his response. Good for
yeah.
you, Groucho.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me of oh, names going. The Country Club, that skit, that comedy thing, where the moose is on the front of the car. You,
Oh, Woody Allen?
Woolly Allen, yeah, I
Oh,
found that very funny.
brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant to
went to
dress
a
up as a
fancy
moose
and got run over and got
and the
run.
real moose loses the competition for best costume.
Yes.
Just absolutely brilliant.
It is. It's up there with the Bob Newhart's, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, another great one.
Oh, yeah. The tobacco.
Yes. Yeah. What?
The po potato. Yeah.
He
Don't tell me you roll up the leaves and you set fire to them, you know.
and the advice, the PR agent's advice to Abraham Lincoln is is
Oh yeah.
just sublime.
Yeah. And the driving lesson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. His was the best-selling record in that year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
Grace L. Ferguson and Storm Door Company. Um, um, with the flights. You know, you people you might want to fasten your seatbelts.
I've been on those
Yeah,
planes.
you people in economy don't look for a seatbelt. No. Um, yeah, what was it? Hawaii. It's kind of liver shaped, isn't it?
And sitting on the plane next to Hitler.
Yes, yeah. Oh dear, we digress. This is
Oh yeah, we do, but
yeah. So we've done sport. That's great. Now we're going to fly again to another country. Where are we
you know,
going?
one other thing about baseball is that I have pondered for years, what is the arts equivalent of Little League and of youth soccer?
Youth orchestras, youth
Mhm.
drama schools.
How is it that we get more people, young people, involved in making their own work such
mm,
that they become consumers of other people's work?
yeah, very good point. I think those that we have a reasonably strong youth music
Mm,
environment in the UK. Nothing to touch La Sistema,
right.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there is inspirational work being done, but it's sort of in pockets in various places. One final thought on cricket was I'm not sure if it was Groucho Marx, but he said any game that can last 5 days and be a draw is wrong.
I'm trying to bring back what Oscar Wilde said about soccer or football, but I can't bring it up right now.
Oh, I think there was a quote about rugby and football.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, rugby is a hooligan's game played by gentlemen, and
Uh-huh.
soccer is a gentleman's game played by hooligans. Anyway, we digress. Um, I'm going to buzz you to London, okay? Um,
Marvelous.
and you and I are spending the week together, and we're doing something different on every evening. On Monday, we're going back in time to a concert, okay? Tuesday, we're going to back in time to Shakespeare's Globe for some
Oh,
Shakespeare.
yeah.
Wednesday, we're going to the premiere of a Broadway or West End musical, anyone you
Okay.
like.
Okay.
Thursday, we're going to the opera at the Royal Opera House, and on Friday, we're going to the pictures. Actually, we might go to the Sphere instead in Las Vegas. Okay. Is there a concert for Monday that you attended that you would dearly love to experience again?
Oh boy. Concert. Um, Yeah, I remember I got some connection with the San Francisco Symphony touring Northern California. And what was Ein Heldenleben, I think was the piece.
Tilson
Uh,
Thomas.
yeah, was it Tilson? Could have been. Could have
Mm,
been. It was amazing. They came to Sacramento, which is less than 100 miles from San Francisco, but it
mm,
was the first time, maybe the only time in recent decades that the San Francisco Symphony decided they wanted to tour the smaller communities of
mm.
Northern California. They had
Wow.
trouble getting the entire orchestra on some stages.
Yeah, I can imagine. When I toured the Japan with the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, we took with us Messiaen's my brain's
Yeah.
gone.
I know. I
Anyway,
was
it was a big orchestra and they didn't have a concert hall big enough for us, so they built one.
so they built that sounds like I have made 4 or 5 trips to Japan. I did have the privilege of touring with the Philadelphia Orchestra and the Pittsburgh Symphony. It's a
Hmm.
long story, and all tied up with having dinner with the chairman of Sony.
Mm.
And it's for another time.
Yeah,
But what a treat to
yeah. Was
travel with
that
those
was it
orchestras.
was it Joseph Kluger?
Joe
Was
Kluger,
Joe
yeah.
Kluger? Yeah, I
You
met
know
Joe
Joe.
Kluger. Yeah.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
he was famous back in 2006, I think it was. He did a talk at the conference for the Association of British Orchestras, and
Uh-huh.
he said, "We've given up on people between the ages of 16 and 30. We'll get them later."
Well, yeah, for decades heard people talk about, oh, look how old the people are in the audience.
Hmm.
Well, if that's the conversation, a lot of those people are dead now. So, maybe there's the reason that they're older has to do with having the resources, having the time, not being involved in raising a family on a daily basis.
Well, he was.
Maybe.
I took a lot from that because I was promoting some events and concerts at the time when I spoke to him, and he said, I I wanted to sort of ask why you abandoning young people. He said, we're not abandoning them. We'll get them later.
We'll get them later.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
said because I have some sympathy with the suggestion that classical music at its finest and most challenging is a little bit like blue cheese, fine red wine, and Shakespeare, right? Um,
Three of my favorite things.
three of my favorite things, but I have only
Stinky cheese.
they have only become my favorite things since
Red wines I can't afford.
yeah, but they've only become my favorite thing since I was 50, right? So, in fact, there was a survey done, you'd be interested in this, that they at the Royal Festival Hall in London on the South Bank, they wanted to find out the average what the average age was of the concert goer in 1952 and in 1982.
Interesting.
It hasn't changed.
That's a cheese.
It's
Yeah.
39, which I thought was
That's
young,
young.
young.
That sounds young to me.
But it does rather suggest that all efforts to sort of reduce the average age of concert goers in there has failed over the last 60 years. But
Well,
um,
I think that I've heard people talk about that for decades, and if someone is serious about that, they better have an awful lot of money and an awful lot of time and
mm,
patience
yeah,
because it's about connecting with what young people are interested in,
yeah,
not what we think they should be interested in.
yeah. The other challenge is the other side of the curtain on the stage. I read recently that you could hire the Royal Festival Hall. You get a named orchestra, a named conductor, and a named soloist, and you sell every seat in the house, and you'll still lose £50,000.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know quite what the NGO structure is in the UK, but as you know, the not-for-profit sector here is
Under
immense,
pressure, huge amounts of pressure.
immense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And competition and
Let's do
yeah.
that, our week together quick fire.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So
Yep.
that's fine. So the concert was held in Laban.
Yeah.
Uh, Shakespeare play, please.
Hamlet.
Nice.
I have my
Um,
own take on Hamlet, that he was a paranoid schizophrenic
mm,
and that actually his father was never murdered.
oh, interesting one. Premiere of a West End or Broadway musical with the Time
Oh,
Machine.
boy, Time Machine. I think probably Cabaret was the one American musical that really got me. Of course,
Love that.
it had Joel Grey in it, which
Mm.
helped.
Opera.
The Magic Flute.
Nice. And a movie.
Seven Samurai.
Nice. And finally is your hero lunch. Okay. You can invite one person to join you for lunch in London. It can be anyone you like, living or not, famous or otherwise, for you to chat to for a couple of hours over lunch in London. Who are you inviting?
David McCullough.
David McCullough.
He's a historian. He narrated most of Ken Burns' films.
All right.
He's originally from Pittsburgh, and he
Mm,
spoke once at a conference we presented, and absolutely amazing grasp of
mm.
American history and culture.
An American popular historian and author, he was a two-time winner of both the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award. And in 2006, he was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom of the United States, the highest civilian award. Fantastic choice.
I've
Now,
read.
in a slight twist to that question,
Mhm.
who would David McCulloch invite?
Who would Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah, you see, there's a lunch. There is a
There's,
lunch.
yeah,
Excuse me. Philip,
yeah.
thank you so much for doing this. That's your fantasy cultural year. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I have.
It's been a blast. So wherever this appears, there'll be a profile about you that Isabel will write. Say hi, Isabel. There's Isabel.
Hello,
Uh,
Isabel. Thank you.
she'll be in touch if she needs more, but
Great.
she's very, very good at finding out things about people. And it'll go on YouTube,
Oh, by
SoundCloud.
the way, I was never convicted. All right.
I know.
Let's be clear about that.
Yes, it was
All right.
rumors.
Yeah.
Rumors.
Okay. Isabel, I was never convicted.
She got that.
Good.
Excellent. So we'll get this published and promoted to the LinkedIn group as soon as we can. Have we booked in our member matchmaking session,
I
Philip?
don't think so.
Okay. Can I put a link in the chat?
Absolutely. Please
Um,
do.
that's another 30-minute session. It's where we'll find up to 100 really useful fellow members
Whew.
for you to connect with.
Well,
Uh,
thank you for doing this. I'm kind of far away to participate in your events, but it gives me great satisfaction and pleasure to have some way to contribute to what you're doing.
well, it's very much appreciated. And please remember, most of our meetings are on Zoom. So
Right.
they're all listed. We're meeting tonight in an hour and a half, actually.
Oh, are you?
Bit too short notice. But there's that's the booking for the matchmaking. Oh no, it's the wrong one. Please ignore that.
Ooh,
Uh,
no, it says 30-minute matchmaking meeting with
yes,
Mark.
that's the right
Yes.
one. That's the correct one.
Okay. Very good. Yes.
Wonderful, Philip. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a blast. Thank
It
you.
has. I appreciate it. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.